from using helicopter gunships, from using its air force to prey on the civilian population. That is an essential imperative for the international community.
But do you know something we don't? As far as we're aware, Russia and China will never allow this through the UN Security Council. Shouldn't we be looking instead, or more productively, at other possible measures?
We should be looking at several other measures, but they're not all mutually exclusive. And while getting Russia and China on board may be more difficult than getting France and the UK on board, France and UK appear to be sympathetic to the idea of a no-fly zone, the effort to have the Security Council make this resolution is really not much more than what they were required to be convinced about to refer Gaddafi's regime for investigation to the International Criminal Court. That determination was the result of a conclusion within the Security Council, including Russia, including China, that there is significant evidence of widespread and systematic crimes against humanity taking place. If the International Court is good, and it is a good place for accountability measures to be enacted, then the Security Council is also a good place for preventive measures to be enacted.
I'm interested to see what a human rights group thinks about this other idea that's being floated about in Washington, also criticized because it might be a propaganda coup for Colonel Gaddafi, of arming the rebels. Where does your organization stand on that?
I don't know that my organization has taken a stand on direct arming of rebels. It's one thing to prevent an abusive administration, an abusive regime from preying on its civilian population. It's another thing to intervene in a conflict.
Well, I think we got the gist of the message there from that human rights group. Let's move on to some breaking news in Colombia. At least 23 employees working for Canada's Talisman Energy have been kidnapped. It's just been reported. Local media is reporting that the kidnappings took place in the eastern department of Vichada. Colombian troops have reportedly been sent to try to find the subcontractors, all of whom are Colombian. We'll keep you informed as we get more information on that. Barack Obama has given the order for the resumption of military trials at the U.S. prison at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. It's the latest acknowledgement that the detention center Obama vowed to close down within a year of his presidency is likely to stay open for some time. Former U.S. President George W. Bush set up the tribunals in 2003 to try non-U.S. citizens who the White House deemed a terrorist threat. Critics such as Amnesty International complained that some testimony against the defendants was obtained through torture. The group also protested against the court for not allowing detainees to hear all the evidence against them, citing national security concerns. When Barack Obama ran for president, he favored ending the tribunals in favor of moving the trials to civilian courts. However, the president now argues that new rules will bring the tribunals into compliance with international law. With more, AlJazeera's John Terrett reports.
Just after he took office, President Obama promised to keep a campaign pledge and close Guantanamo within 1 year.
It is a rallying cry for our enemies. It sets back the willingness of our allies to work with us in fighting an enemy that operates in scores of countries. By any measure, the cost of keeping it open far exceed the complications involved in closing it.
Obama also stopped the controversial Bush-era military trial system and promised a full review. Now, 2 years on, Guantanamo's still open and the military trials are back. The White House says it's made the system fairer, but critics see it as a return to square one.
The ironic aspect of this is that President Bush established this kind of review mechanism. President Obama set up this kind of a mechanism when he took office, and now this is the third iteration. I have no reason to believe that this new system is going to be any better than the two systems that it has already replaced.
The issue of what to do about Guantanamo Bay has dogged Obama's presidency from the beginning. His political opponents and some of those in his own party have blocked his efforts. The White House wanted to move and try some detainees in U.S. courts, but Congress made that impossible. Obama has also found it hard to find countries willing to take those released from Guantanamo, and his administration now says some prisoners will just stay locked up without trial indefinitely. Now that the review into detention policy at Guantanamo Bay has been completed, charges are expected soon for at least 3 detainees who were charged under the Bush administration and who've been deemed eligible to stand trial, but whose cases were dropped in 2009 so the review could take place. John Terrett, Al Jazeera, Washington.
We'll have more news from the Americas later in this news hour, including how the unrest in Libya could have an impact on the global economic recovery. But now let's return to Doha.
Tunisia's interim prime minister has unveiled his new cabinet, and he's disbanded the country's feared and hated secret police. This is the third caretaker government since the overthrow of Zine Al Abidine Ben Ali in January. Nazanin Moshiri has more from Tunis.
It was billed as a new beginning, but the interim prime minister Beji Caid Sebsi admitted the key positions in government will remain the same. The difference now, a promise that not one member of the cabinet will stand in the next election, and security will be a priority.
We wanted it to be a caretaker government, but more importantly, a government which saves the country from this predicament.
One of the first moves of this new government, the dismantling of the so-called political police, filmed here by Al Jazeera. A force which harassed and spied on Tunisians for so many years. The Ministry of Interior announcement came on its Facebook page. It just shows you how times have changed in Tunisia. This once hated institution is now using the same social sites which helped in the uprising to get its own message across. It's not clear how members of this once powerful security force will now react. The Prime Minister says this is a dangerous period for the country. His challenge now to take Tunisia to the next election and deliver the democracy people here fought and died for. Nazanin Moshiri, Al Jazeera, Tunis.
Egypt's caretaker prime minister says restoring security in the shortest possible time is a priority for his government. Essam Sharaf spoke to journalists hours after a new-look cabinet was sworn in. Meanwhile, Egypt's prosecutor has ordered the detention of 47 police officers for burning documents at several state security headquarters. Egyptians have been trying to gain access to information that was gathered by the ousted president Hosni Mubarak's regime. Now, in Egypt's capital, Cairo, thousands of Coptic Christians have been carrying out protests calling for an end to discrimination that they say they are facing as a minority group. The protesters blocked the 6th of October bridge and chanted anti-discrimination slogans on Monday. There's also anger over a dispute between a Christian and a Muslim family at the weekend. That dispute led to the deaths of 2 people. Yemen's opposition coalition is vowing to ramp up protests against President Ali Abdullah Saleh. This after he rejected a plan for him to step down in 2011. Meanwhile, there have also been riots in the capital Sanaa's main prison. Hashim Al-Bara is in Sanaa.
Violence broke out when inmates started chanting anti-government slogans, asking President Ali Abdullah Saleh to step aside. At that moment, security forces fired tear gas canisters. Gunshots were heard. We were told by an inmate that many prisoners were injured. However, authorities remain